Welcome to Fireside Gaming. I'm Billum, and I have failed you. Over the past year, I've been showing off footage of games I intended to review, and then just never did. Some are games I even mentioned as being up for review in my New Year's channel update. But alas, I was not up to the task. Let's take a look at some of the games that defeated me, and I'll explain why I'm dropping reviews of them. Also, just note, I may try to revisit some of these games down the road, but for right now, they're not currently in the pool for reviews. I'll also be providing some quick thoughts on the games based on what I played of them, but don't take these as reviews or final verdicts. First up, we have Steel Lancer Arena International, or SLAI. This is a vehicular combat game that leans heavily towards the mech genre. It's a sequel to Phantom Crash, an Xbox exclusive that I've never played. If you've been here for a while, it might surprise you to see me dropping this game, as I love me some mecha. But let me explain why. Back when I started Fireside Gaming, I was working on a different PC. I was also using it to emulate all of the games I reviewed. Heck, I still use emulation to capture game footage, but have upgraded to a capture card recently to open the channel up to more games. Unfortunately, I ran into some problems when transferring data from my old PC to my new one, and my SLAI save data was lost in the process. That really sucks, as I was a decent ways into the game. Truthfully, I really don't want to start it over again right now. It's not that I didn't enjoy SLAI, but it did have some hangups. The mecha customization was a bit more limited than I expected, with parts being locked to mechs of the same manufacturer. However, I did really enjoy its 2000s take on what a future internet society would be like, and can safely say I prefer it to what we actually have now. There's a lot of charm with navigating its virtual network with a 2000s aesthetic. Plus, you could buy songs by real-life indie bands and have them play during your battles. That alone is an incredibly cool feature. Next up, we have Chaos Legion. This is a hack-and-slash PS2 game by Capcom that's basically a shallower version of Devil May Cry, kind of. Funnily enough, main character Sieg Warreet? Gosh, it's German, I don't know guys. The point is, he sports a swapped color scheme compared to Dante with his red hair and white outfit. So, what was the problem that led to me dropping this game? I can't for the life of me figure out the combat. It works off of a companion system that has players giving commands to their Chaos Legion, while also taking part in combat themselves. If all of that sounds like a prototype version of Astral Chain, then you'd be right. It shares a lot of similarities with that game, while not being exactly the same. I have to wonder if some of the ex-Capcom devs that went on to create Platinum Games were involved in this game's creation. Unfortunately, I just really couldn't get a grasp on this game's combat. Something about it didn't click with me, and every new level felt like a roadblock, even in the early game. I even resorted to reading walkthroughs and watching video guides to try and figure it out, but something about it continued to elude me. That's a bummer, as I was really enjoying the gothic setting and story of what I got to play. Pathways into Darkness. If you're a hardcore Bungie fan, then that name means something to you. It was one of the studio's first games, and it released all the way back in 1993. It's a first-person shooter that has players taking on the role of a US Army Special Forces soldier tasked with setting off a nuke in an underground pyramid to stop the awakening of an ancient alien god. It's an incredibly interesting game, with players able to speak to the dead to learn more about the events taking place in the pyramid. This adds a layer of mystery to the game that I really enjoyed, as players can type basic questions to the dead to communicate with them. The game also acts as a somewhat launching point for the Marathon series, which heavily inspired the Halo games. I actually started playing this because I wanted to cover Marathon, but there was one big factor that stopped me from going the distance. Time. And not real-world time either. Pathways into Darkness tracks time based on movement and resting, the latter of which is used to heal injuries. The player only has a limited time to stop the alien god from awakening, and failure means a bad ending to the game. I got pretty dang far into this game, but that constant time drain left me feeling incredibly stressed out and anxious during every play session. Add in the fact that I was playing the game around the holidays last year, and I was having to take frequent breaks that left me lost when I came back to it. It got to a point where even thinking about booting up the game filled me with dread and killed my desire to play anything. And that's why I'm dropping this game. I'll just skip it and move right onto the Marathon series instead. It's not that the game is bad or anything, I have to make that clear, as it does a lot of cool things. But I hate time crunching games, and this one really got to me. Have you ever heard of Edge of Eternity? It's a turn-based RPG that came out of early access last year. I made a video on it as part of a First Thoughts series. Basically, I wanted to give quick first impressions of new games without dedicating the time to a full review. That concept went nowhere as I quickly realized it would be hard to do without a capture card. Also, I just plainly don't play enough new games as they come out to keep something like that going. And in addition to that, the Edge of Eternity footage was captured on my old PC and it wasn't up to the task. You can see what I mean in that First Thoughts video, as it's a stuttering mess. I even deleted all of my footage as it wasn't up to my standards. I intended to follow up that First Thoughts video with a full review of Edge of Eternity, but never got around to it. That's because I pushed off playing the game for about a year, as the developers were promising major updates during that time period. And that's happened. There's been loads of improvements to the game, so much so that I'll want to start over rather than picking up where I left off. If you've been watching some of my recent videos, you know that I'm trying to avoid overloading myself with JRPGs. I made that mistake once already, and it slowed down my production as each of those videos took a lot of time to make. It's not that I don't want to do more RPGs, but I have to better plan when and how I review them. So while I'm not currently working on an Edge of Eternity review, I will say that I think it's worth playing if you're a fan of the genre. Also, it has a great soundtrack, which I'm actually listening to as I write this video script. And now we get to the final game that I've given up on, at least temporarily: Shadow Hearts. Yet again, this is one of those games that suffered neglect as I overloaded myself with JRPGs. The other problem was capturing footage. I ran into some serious glitches while emulating the game. We're talking cutscenes playing at a fourth the speed they should be. And unfortunately, I didn't start running into those problems until 3 or 4 hours into the game. If there's one game from this list that I'm most likely to revisit before the others, it's Shadow Hearts. I've already started the series with my Koudelka review, and I've got a capture card now, which means I can play it on original hardware. Plus, I have the other games now too. When I started out, I only had the first Shadow Hearts, but since then I've acquired the other two. The biggest reason I'm considering this as a game I've given up on is the fact that I have to start over, and I'm just not quite ready to do that yet. Like I've already said, I'm trying to be more careful about how I plan my JRPG reviews, as well as series reviews in general. I don't want to get spread out across multiple series and leave one hanging forever between installments. I've already done that to some degree, and I feel a bit bad about it. I'd like to avoid that trend, and while I have reviewed Koudelka, I feel like I can count Shadow Hearts as separate and hold off on reviewing it until I'm ready. And that's all of the games that have defeated me, so far. Like I said, I'll potentially revisit some of these down the line, but I can't say when. If you are looking forward to me reviewing one of the games I've mentioned in this video, then I really am sorry for having dragged you along like this. You're more than welcome to stick around and see what else I have in the works, but I won't blame anyone that decides to unsubscribe. On that same note, you're also more than welcome to dislike this video, and if I've truly upset you, feel free to put me on blast in the comments. But no matter what, thank you for watching, and as always, take it easy.